Today, we're talking with groundbreaking PR guru Dick Grove of Inc. PR about the place of PR in growing your tech firm. Welcome to BeyondSaaS, Dick. Before we jump in, do you have a golden nugget for us today?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm sure you're a little warmer than we are back here in the Midwest. If you want to talk about my golden nugget, it's something relatively recent. As I've grown older, my hearing is not the best anymore. Much of it because I spent 5 years in the entertainment business, and big all-tech speakers out there on the road blew my hearing out pretty bad. So the golden nugget I use now more than anything is an app called Read AI, which helps us when we're having a conference call or when I'm having a Zoom call or a Google Meet call. And what it is, it's an artificial intelligent note keeper. I can go back and look at it within minutes as to exactly both the transcript as well as a summary of what was said. So it's been a huge help moving forward with talking and phone calls and being able to understand more clearly what the client is looking for, wants, and so forth.
I love that. My golden nugget for today is I found an app called Fabulous, and it revolves around the idea of getting things done and that we only control this one little moment. And the way that I get the things that I want is to control right now with better habits. I probably have some entrepreneurial ADD. So to be able to just focus on now and just get the one thing done right now and realize that's how I affect everything rather than setting these big goals that I maybe never get to, it's been transformational for me. So that our audience knows, Dick has a 50-plus year career in communications, in crisis management, and PR. Nearly 30 years ago, right, you founded Inc. PR. And this was the first public relations firm to offer pay for performance results. So rather than a retainer, the firms would only pay you when they got some results from what you were doing. And then you also relatively recently wrote the book, It's the Media Stupid, PR Without the BS. So Dick, do you want to give us like a high level view of what you do now?
Yeah, we've been around 30 years now as a PR firm that we did pioneer pay for performance, which just simply means to a client paying for the coverage you get and not coverage you don't get. So the difference is that the more coverage we get for a client, the more they're going to pay. The less coverage we get, the less they're going to pay. Now that's simplifying it because we do charge a small retainer or in certain cases now a larger retainer, and then our pricing becomes less. But it really depends on the client. But all of it protects and lets us share in the financial risk with the client, as opposed to saying, we're going to charge you big hourly fees or a big fat retainer and hope we are able to get something and make you pay for our relationship building and our effort. So that was very different. The other difference 30 years ago was that I needed to have really quality top-level people that would be pitching the stories for me, people with PR experience, people with media experience. That was probably one of the key things, and allowing them to work from home offices. Now, 30 years ago, nobody really thought about that. In fact, we didn't even have a real internet 30 years ago, so you can imagine. But the idea was work from home, use your phone, use your computer, and land stories for me, and I will pay you on a commission basis to get those stories because you're going to be the engine that drives this company. And many of those people are still with me, as a matter of fact. I've got a couple of people that have been with me over 30 years that are still out there pitching stories.
That's incredible.
And we deal constantly with a myth that goes through PR, which is it's who you know in the media is really how one gets a story placed. You know, do you know anybody at the Wall Street Journal? Do you know anybody at TechCrunch? Do you know anybody, et cetera, et cetera? And what I like to say is we know all of them over the years. You don't work this for 30 years without knowing everybody. But the truth is, those people roll over. Those people change. What you really want is and what we pride ourselves on is understanding the media, having a sense of what's newsworthy for a client, and understanding how to craft that how to craft their message that they want to convey into a newsworthy pitch that the media will receive, listen to, and publish. Uh, we don't do press releases where we send out a press release and hope somebody picks it up. That's a terrible way to get a story in any kind of responsible media. Now, of course,
Sure.
things have changed over the last 50 years. Things have changed over the last 10 years. Things have changed over the last 2 years. Okay? It's a rapidly changing environment out there in the media. I mean, many, many, many media are no longer even in existence. Print is something that is still there, but very, very less than what it used to be. We're dealing with podcasts. We're dealing with influencers. It's a whole new world. But what we like to think we still specialize in is the earned media part of things, not the paid media, but earned media, where you literally have to go out and get the media to think you're cool enough and interesting enough to do a story on.
So let's look at this for a second from a tech company perspective, right? They have all these other venues. They can go online and advertise on Google AdWords, and they can have social media. Like,
Right.
what value is PR still bringing to tech companies these days? Like, why does a tech company need PR?
Well, they need it more than anything. They need it for credibility. And which means going back to the term earned media. By the way, I had a prospect recently that called it organic media. I thought that was interesting because that sort of implied that it just grew up by itself without any human hand involved. I don't think there's anything called organic media. We earn media coverage for our clients. But what I'm saying is, like a tech company that's starting out, they really need to have credibility for their story, their product, their management. You get that through earned media, meaning a independent third party, i.e., the media, is actually doing a story and saying nice things about you, as opposed to you saying nice things about yourself. When you're using paid media or owned media, you're simply talking about yourself, which is valuable. Don't get me wrong. It's very valuable. But where the real credibility comes is when you have a third party saying something nice about you. And
Oof.
also where that is that creates content, credible content, that can be then used in your other communication vehicles, such as social media, paid media, etc. Using that kind of created contact that's credible, again, coming from a third party. That's why a tech company needs us. That's why it needs PR. And too many today are still thinking that I'll hire a digital marketing firm, or even worse, I'll do it myself. But in hiring a digital marketing firm, they think they get it, and they said, well, they do PR, which means they write up a couple of press releases and send them to TechCrunch. That isn't PR. That isn't getting you that profile that you really need in the tech media as well as the business media, in order to give credibility to your company and build your brand.
Where does storytelling fit in all this? I'm a tech company, let's say, and I have the newest, best product. Like, why do we need storytelling still?
Stories are everything. The media still want to hear a tale. They want to know who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist, how has this evolved? So storytelling is still very important, even for the most minor kind of thing you're going to announce. If it's a new hire, why was that person hired? What do they bring to it? What's their background? That's all part of the tale that you're going to tell in the pitch and what you're saying. So it's not just facts and figures. Facts and figures only go so far.
How do you find that story? I know you're used to looking at it, but somebody, who's just talking about their tech platform, like, where are they even looking to find that story?
The truth of it is, and that's one of the reasons I wrote that book. My book is all about finding what's newsworthy in a company. It goes way beyond just saying what you do. Too many companies say, oh, well, we do this, we build this, we manufacture this, we provide this service. Well, why? What's the story behind it? That's what makes it interesting, and that's what's going to make it newsworthy. So we take a company when we first meet with them and dig deep, and talk about their messaging, their background, their history, their management. We're looking for those interesting little nuggets that we can use with the media to differentiate them from the thousands of other people that are trying to get their attention. It could be what you do. You could be doing something incredibly interesting and newsworthy. It may be how you do it. It may be how you run your company or where you find the resources. That could be how you run your company and how you do what you do. It could be a human interest angle.
I guess you helped trigger a thought in my mind that I've never had before, that all my clients, all the people that we're talking about, they're selling a tech product. Hey, my technology does this for you. But when you're selling that angle to the media is selling interest, right? They're just selling something interesting for somebody else, right? So I'm trying to sell my product, but they're trying to sell interest, right? And that interest comes from the story.
If you're whether it be a podcaster or whether it be a reporter or whether it be an editor or whether it be a producer in broadcast, as I said, you're going to get hundreds, if not thousands, of pitches every day. And what makes you different? What makes them? Because what's them going to say? I'd like to have more information on that. What piques their interest? And that's where we've been doing it a long time. And so one of the things I love about the people that work for me is they're great storytellers. They have great news instincts. So they can see, it could be anything from a picture on the wall behind somebody being introduced in a Zoom call. And that picture could say, what is that picture? Why is that? Well, that was when I was 13 and I was first experimenting with this kind of thing in my garage. Wow, that's an interesting story. That's what I mean. So you've got to be looking constantly for that thing that's going to differentiate the story, not necessarily the product, but the story and why that's going to be a hook that's going to grab the media's attention. You don't get that by just putting out a press release of facts and figures.
Right. By the way, that kind of makes me want to ask why I see a hand over at the corner of your screen over there.
That's a sculpture of a hand that basically, when you wind it up, it taps as if it's becoming impatient.
Oh, that's funny. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about tech companies that kind of get to a plateau, right? They get to maybe $10 million in sales and then they feel stuck and they've been doing the same thing. How do they unstick themselves with PR? Like, how does PR push them through to the next level, and what do they need to do to move that forward?
Well, first of all, you got to hire the right firm, and I'm not saying we're necessarily the right firm, but you got to hire usually somebody from the outside, because that's going to give an objective view of what's going on in the company, and particularly if it's a company that's been established for a while. One of the things that I like to do constantly, even in our own company, is reapproach it as if it's a fresh look. What do we need to do to make ourselves better and different? Well, we do that same with a client that has been established for a while and so forth. Let's take a look at where you are, where you've been, where you're going, and what you've been doing. And let's see if we can find some really interesting things. And by and large, we usually do. So the first thing is to do some real introspection. Secondly, make sure you're using some sort of somebody on the outside that has objectivity about looking at that introspection. And there are new ways, because you could go back and then go back to some of the old people that may have done stories on you, the media itself, even if the reporters or editors out there, and taking a fresh look at what you've done before. There's no sense reinventing a wheel. If somebody is still around that did a great story on you, and that was 5 years ago, that doesn't mean, hey, let's go back and talk to them. Tell them about what you've done in the meantime and how you've grown and how you've faced your best obstacles and overcome them.
Yeah,
So
some of those follow-up stories are my favorite ones if I'm reading.
absolutely.
So the CMOs, the CFOs, even the CEOs, they're always asking me about ROI, right? How do I justify my return on investment with PR? And PR particularly is tough because it's vague. It's not selling my product directly. So how do you kind of justify that ROI for PR?
Well, we do it by being honest. How's that? There really isn't. I have read everything for the last 25, 30 years, and you can go even further back, okay? How do I know that I have received X amount of value out of a story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal or how do I know that that's worth what I just paid you to do that, whether it's by a fat retainer or whether it's by the piece itself, etc. Well, the truth of it is there isn't. And an article, it's not necessarily measurable. Now, yes, if you did polling at the very beginning before Scenario ran, and then you did it at various elements afterwards, you could tell whether there was an attitude change. So getting all the way back to the ROI question, I always find that amusing because there really isn't. What I've often said is don't look at it as one story having something, but a campaign overall. Yeah, you'll be able to tell whether you're developing sales, whether your stock is going up, and so forth. But it takes a campaign to do that over a period of time, not just one story, one press release, etc. And
Okay. Then what is my critical what is my must-have reason for PR? Why do I have to have PR if I can't define that specific metric?
you'll know it when you see it. Okay. When you know you're going to get value is where you start seeing yourself being more accepted in the marketplace, more accepted in the media, etc. You need to build that up over a period of time. And the greatest value is credibility. How do you measure credibility?
Mm.
You know, because the greatest thing that PR provides a company or a person is credibility. Now, how do you measure that? How do you put ROI on credibility?
Sure.
It's an abstract thing, but will you know it when you hear it or see it? Yes.
Right. Credibility is trust, and trust helps me when I come to buy the product know that, okay, what they said, I can believe it, right? So you close more clients, you get more attention, right? More people are coming and looking at you, and those people are more likely to believe you.
Yeah, and like I said, PR is not an end all. Don't get me wrong. We're not curing cancer. We're not brain surgeons. We're basically publicizing soft business news through the media. That's what PR does. What we are is trying to drive through the media a third party, giving our clients credible coverage because a third party is saying nice things about you. Now, if they're saying bad things about you, uh, we've had clients that come to us and say, how do I stop people saying bad things about you? My first response is stop doing bad things, and they probably won't say bad things about you. But but there's a way of doing that by taking and building yourself with credible, good, positive stories that eventually drive down the bad stuff. And we've done that for clients as well. But again, the key is credibility. You can call it trust. I call it only credibility because it's a third party saying nice things about you. It's
Right.
no different than, someone down the street that says something nice about you and you say, wow, or how good you feel when your boss, or even better, when a competitor says something nice about you. Okay.
Mm.
And which means they probably read it in some kind of publication or online or wherever and heard somebody say, well, they've got no dog in this fight, and yet they're saying nice things about them. So
When you look at mid-stage companies that are just getting out of, their startup phase and they're starting to get to a place where they're looking at PR, are there some common mistakes that you see that they've been making? Is there something that they frequently shouldn't be doing and that they're doing?
that's a good question. But mid-stage company that I'll say what I'd said earlier, which is a matter of taking a hard look at the company, doing some in-depth dive into what they're doing, their messaging, their marketing, how they're doing it about themselves, and seeing if there's ways that can be presented through the media, in our case, through the media in a better tone. Now, again, I'm saying through the media because that's what we do for a living. Uh, you don't have to go through the media. You could do it first person. But eventually, the bigger the company, the more they're going to want to reach millions, and the greater the audience. And that means you've got to go through the media. You're not going to build a multi-billion-dollar company word of mouth.
Right. What do you see coming up in the next year or so for these mid-stage tech companies or companies in general? What do you see the future looking like with all these changes that we have?
Well, I don't know exactly. I'm being honest with you. One of the reasons I've got quite a few young people around me is they're more in tune to some of the new media than even I am, and so forth. But I think one of the trends obviously is AI. Uh, I mean it's ballooning in terms of its use, uh, and what we have to be careful about is everybody using the term AI and all the different definitions that it may have, and the different companies, and is it all the same? Uh, and one has to be very careful of that. But I think one of the obvious trends is how is AI going to affect the media? And one of the things that's affected already, you can see even by I think it was the Journal or somebody came out and said, we're examining our press releases that you send us, and we can tell whether they were AI generated or not. And
Oh,
we're
wow.
going to accept AI generated pitches. Well, good luck, because AI is getting very sophisticated as a tool. The counter AI is going to have to become equally sophisticated. I have a hard time imagining it's going to catch up, uh, but yeah, it can be a real helpful tool in a most simple sense. Like I've said, with us, we're taking notes with it. Uh, every once in a while, we use a chatbot, perhaps, to run a proposal through chatbot to see what chatbot would say about it. But we don't use that as the proposal, but
Sure.
we use it to get an idea. And that kind of use can be very, very valuable to us. But what I worry about is the use of AI as one, the misunderstanding of it, because I don't understand all of it by any means, and I'd like to think there are very, 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 very smart people beyond me that don't totally understand it either, and we're tossing the term around quickly and easily, and money is being invested in it quickly and easily, and I'm not sure there's a real understanding yet. So I think over the next, and I wouldn't say 5 years, this thing moves too fast for that. I think over the next year, you're going to see that settling out a bit, where there is going to be a better understanding of what AI means to the business world and how it can be used.
Absolutely. All right. So we keep talking about storytelling. Can I get you to give us a story about your Harley?
The first thing about my Harley is that I've now, as of 3 years ago, I traded in my Harley and I ride a Indian,
An
which is
Indian.
a brand of thing. But I was a Harley rider for almost 40 years. So I can tell you one quick story. I was, a few years back, I was down in Mexico with a bunch of riders. We were doing a 3-week ride through Mexico when you still could ride through Mexico. I think we got all the way across, and we were in, I forget exactly where it was, Mazatlan or somewhere, and my voltage regulator went out. And there were no dealers around that could fix it. I called my dealer in Kansas, of all things, and said, can you get a part down? It was way too late and too much trouble to get that part down. So here I am stuck with my motorcycle, 4 other riders, and no way to ride back. So a little ingenuity. I I got a I found a dealer that had a Volkswagen, not a Harley dealer, not a motorcycle dealer, and he had a little Volkswagen battery. And so we strapped it with bungee cords on the back of my Harley,
Oh my gosh.
hooked it up, and rode it for 600 miles all the way back to the States with, and now understand there's no voltage regulator. So everything's popping. My headlight,
Oh no.
my taillights popped. There was no control over the voltage going through there. So all I could do was get on and ride like a son of a gun to get back to the States. And by the way, we made it. And I had a friend of mine with me who who gave me a bad time because said, "Just why don't you just leave the bike, Dick?" It's not. I said, "You don't. What kind of a rider are you? You would leave your motorcycle?
Abandon your motorcycle?
I'll figure out a way to get it back." You know. So
What do you love about your new Indian?
first of all, it's a little more high tech than Harley, believe it or not. It's much lighter and more maneuverable. My last couple of Harleys were what were called the big baggers with the big front end fairing and the saddlebags and all of that, and those bikes are heavy. And I wanted a bike that was more maneuverable. Like I remember my old bike from 30 years before. So I went and found an Indian Chief bobber that has more power than my Harley did, and yet I can easily maneuver it. I can even back it up with my feet, which you could never do with the Harley. And if it falls over, God forbid, I can pick it up.
Right.
The Harley, you can't. Try
Right.
picking up a 900-pound motorcycle on the side of the road.
Oh
So,
man.
so I love it. I'm anticipating another ride. I still ride with a couple of my high school buddies, and we're anticipating a ride sometime toward the end of March again, heading down south. It's one of the real pleasures I still have is being out there on the road and motels and diners and just being on the road, smoking cigars and sitting outside in the night. It's great. So.
Sounds like heaven. Well, this has been really informative and interesting. Where can our audience find out more about you or about your services?
Our website is, of course, www.incpr.com, inkincpr.com. You can reach me at dgrove@inkincpr.com. And the book is on the website. It's on Amazon. And I'm open to hearing from anybody, even if it's good, even if it's a good Harley story. Okay with me.
I love that. Dick, thank you so much for being on Beyond SaaS. To the audience out there, if you're a leader in a mid-stage tech company looking to grow, please drop us some feedback or questions or comments. And of course, it always helps if you like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Beyond SaaS.